Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Wanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Mberi, and these are some of our stories. South African International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola has dismissed the proposal to withdraw South African soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Africa Energy Bank targets an asset base of $120 billion to support the continent's energy transition goals. In Namibia, the Petrofund CEO is keen to see appraisal reports of oil exploration work currently being undertaken by oil and gas majors in the country. Follow all our programs on oneup2.com, DSTV 285, GoTV 25 in Namibia, as well as Network Media Hub on YouTube. Arrie Hougaard will also fill us in on more news making waves in South Africa. This is Africa Good Morning. Top stories shortly. Let's get into our top stories on Africa Good Morning. South African International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola has dismissed the proposal to withdraw South African soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo, stating that this action would be worse than surrender. Lamola addressed Parliament during an urgent debate regarding the deployment of South African troops to the DRC. This special session was called following the deaths of 14 South African National Defence Force soldiers in the eastern part of the DRC. As families await the repatriation of their loved ones, abrupt withdrawal, as called upon by someone in the House, is not even a tactical retreat. It is even worse than a surrender, as with the number of armed groups in the area. There lies ambush, he said. Lamola stated that South African government welcomes comments of the leaders of the Southern Africa Development Community and the East Africa Community, who called for a ceasefire and dialogue in the DRC over the weekend. Now, the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority yesterday raided several smuggling points alongside the Limpopo River and confiscated and destroyed boats used to illegally cross the crocodile-infested river. The raids were drone-led and caught the smugglers by surprise as the tax collector tightened screws on smugglers who are believed to have cost the country millions of dollars in lost revenue. The sting operation saw Zimra's elite drone operations team, customs officers, and other border security agents providing real-time aerial intelligence that led to the swift interception and destruction of smuggling infrastructure. Now, moving on, the head of the United Nations AIDS Agency has warned about the future of global HIV prevention efforts. Winnie Bayanyima, UNAIDS Executive Director, stated on Monday that if the United States were to withdraw its support for the world's largest AIDS program, the number of new HIV infections could increase by more than 6 times by 2029. Bayanyima emphasized that HIV infections had been declining in recent years, with 2023 seeing 1.3 million new cases. However, she warned that this progress could be reversed without continued support, particularly from the United States, which has played a critical role in funding global AIDS initiatives. In a statement, Bayanyima expressed grave concern for those who would be impacted by a loss of funding. People are going to die because life-saving tools have been taken away from them, she said. And from what I have heard, I have not yet heard of any European country committing to step in. But I know that they are listening and trying to see where they can come in because they care about rights, about humanity. Now, the United States had previously announced a 90-day freeze on foreign assistance, including funding for AIDS programs. Bayanyima noted that if this funding gap persists, the number of people newly affected with HIV could reach 8.7 million by 2029. And in the last of our top stories, detained Ugandan opposition politician Kizza Besigye has begun a hunger strike as his time spent in detention awaiting trial nears 3 months. Besigye, 68, was charged in a military court with possession of pistols and attempting to purchase weapons abroad, accusations which he denies. Besigye used to be a personal doctor for Uganda's longtime president Yoweri Museveni, but went on to become an opposition leader. He has contested and lost 4 presidential elections against Museveni, who has been in power since 1986. The veteran opposition figure has previously accused the Ugandan authorities of political persecution. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. After the break, I'm looking forward to talking to Arrie Hougaard as he brings us the news stories from Zanzi, South Africa.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
All right, it's time for us to talk to Arrie Hougaard as he brings us the news stories directly from South Africa. Good morning, Arrie. How are you?
Yes, a very good morning, Ashwin. It's nice to talk to you from Cape Town. Good morning.
Indeed, let's get into your first story now. European Union expressed support to South Africa amidst the announcements by the USA that they will not attend the G20 summit.
Yes, that's an important component, Ashwin, and the EU is a big component, obviously, of the G20, Africa Union also as well there. That is Marco Rubio. He's from the United States, and he confirmed that the statement at the moment is the United States won't be at the G20 summit in November later this year. South Africa took over presidency of the G20 in December. So it's the first time the G20 is going to be hosted in Africa. So it's been previously in India and Brazil. Obviously the G20 stands for economic, working together economically. That's the big component, that's the umbrella that is under, but all the big players in the world is a member of the G20. It's the United States, United Kingdom, the European Union, African Union, countries like Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, everybody basically is in there. So it would be important for the United States also to be there, specifically if it's about economically working together. That's one component externally. So we know all the rumbles that was made. You touched on the effect of the HIV, effect of also the executive orders and the loss of potentially 7 billion South African rand to South Africa for AIDS, health, etc. But internally, the Government of National Unity, Ashwin, standing together. They had a meeting yesterday to discuss President Ramaphosa's SONA, the State of the Nation address, and all came out positive. The whole Government of National Unity united, saying that they backed what President Ramaphosa put forward. They stand for unity, and they were stronger together. And just lastly on this, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, that's Minister Lamola, he indicated that obviously it's important to have discussions with the United States if there's misunderstandings, if they exaggerating some of the issues that's happening in South Africa. But he said it's going to be an equal discussion. It's not going to be almost like a bow waiting for something to happen to you. But so that's the newest developments from the government regarding that.
All right, Arrie, now moving on to your next story. South African troops remain in the Democratic Republic of Congo as Kenya calls for all armed forces to cease hostilities. We briefly touched on this in our top stories.
Yes, so that was the statement from Kenya, but the reality at the moment is South Africa sent more troops. So at the moment, there's estimated that there's 3,000 troops in the DRC at the moment. It seemed like 700 more sent just a week ago. But the problem now is that there's cities that has been captured by the troops. And Goma is one of them. So the troops have to land 1,500 kilometers south of that city where the other troops are. So it's like landing in Cape Town when you're fighting in Windhoek. So that's the challenges the South African government or the Defence Force have at the moment. 3,000 troops there. They're still trying to fight for peace. It's the M23 rebels with this seems like help from Rwandan troops. That's been going on for 3 decades, so it's a difficult one. We have limited resources protecting our troops, but we're there. There's a role, but they're stuck in that city that was occupied by M23. So it's more like a case of how do you get them out and what's their role there. So it is a tough, challenging situation for the government.
Right now, Arrie, partnerships between the private sector and government received a boost as new regulations were signed into law. Tell us more about this.
Yes, that's one important for the country. I think the infrastructure in South Africa under pressure, and the government, they realize that they need the private sector also in this. So they call it the public-private partnership. So what it basically means is that the private sector, they can perform functions normally performed by the government. So that's a partnership. And normally it was difficult to get those partnerships going. But now this new law states that if the project is under 2 billion rand in total, the cost of that, then it need not go to the National Treasury for approval. So that's a big one to avoid. That normally takes very long. So there's more opportunity for partnership from the private sector, like for instance, happening at the moment in the harbour in Durban. So there's certain components that Transnet handle and certain components that the private sector starts to handle. So hopefully that will help with the whole support base for South Africa's economy.
All right, Arrie, let's move on to your last story. South African men's soccer team Bafana Bafana continue their promise to play games across South Africa.
Yes, indeed. South Africa, like Namibia, we're motivated by sport and activities, the sport activities and participation and what the national teams do. The national men's team there in action, Bafana Bafana, they've stated that they want to play all over the country and be the country's team. So what happened was previously they played in East London, or they played in Bloemfontein, also Jakarta and in Cape Town. Now they're playing in the northern part, Polokwane, and that is confirmed 21st of March. They will play a 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying game against Lesotho there. They're a decent start to that campaign, beat Benin and Zimbabwe, but lost to Rwanda. So important game, 21 March, that is in Polokwane, and that is Bafana Bafana. So nice to see there's some positives. There's challenges otherwise, but the sport always keeps a smile on our face. Hopefully Bafana Bafana will qualify for the 2026 World Cup soccer.
Thank you very much, Arrie, for bringing us the news stories from South Africa as they are.
Pleasure, Ashwin. Nice talking to everyone, and a blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, cheers. Always good. Let's have a look at the weather predictions before we return with economic news.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
All right, we start our economic news in Namibia, where Petrofund CEO Lilian Molemi says she is keen to see appraisal reports of oil exploration work currently being undertaken by oil and gas majors that will determine whether Namibia will become an oil producer in the coming years. This footage is courtesy of Namibia Data Hub, Network Data Hub rather.
Hydrocarbons in Namibia, starting in 2022, 2023, and 2024 by 3 oil and gas explorers. Many more major oil and gas company exploration companies, as well as service companies, have come to Namibia to not only undertake exploration activities, while those that made discoveries implemented both exploration activities and appraisal programs to assess the commercial viability of the discovered hydrocarbons. At the moment, we are all, including myself, keenly awaiting the official announcement of the appraisal results of these discovered reserves. Many companies are rushing to Namibia because of these discoveries. It has thus become imperative that we forge strategic relationships to position our youth to secure meaningful employment in this lucrative sector. It is in this light that the Petrofund has rolled out multifaceted interventions to ramp up skills development and also strengthen our local training institutions.
Now, the Africa Energy Bank, which will fund oil and gas projects and support the continent's energy transition goals, will launch in the first quarter of 2025 and target an asset base of $120 billion, Nigeria's oil minister said on Tuesday. The fossil fuel-focused bank, a partnership between trade finance institution Afreximbank and the African Petroleum Producers Organization, was due to start operations by mid-2024, an Afreximbank official said last year. The building is ready and we are only putting finishing touches to it. By the end of this quarter, this bank will take off, said Nigerian Junior Oil Minister Hanneken Lokpobiri. Staying with Nigeria, Dangote Peugeot Automobiles Nigeria Limited, the official manufacturer and marketer of Peugeot vehicles in Nigeria, has begun assembling the GT model of the Peugeot 3008, a globally successful and award-winning SUV, which is equipped with a high-performance 1 to 6-liter turbo engine. Now, the Peugeot 3008 GT expands D-Pan's existing lineup from its state-of-the-art assembly plant in Kaduna. Now, this marks a significant step in Dangote's commitment to boosting local vehicle production and enhancing Nigeria's auto industry. Peugeot's first assembly of the 3008 model in Africa took place in Ghana in 2022. You are still with Africa Good Morning. We're going to take a quick break before we return with the sport news. Getting into our sports news, Zimbabwean international Marshall Munetsi has joined English Premier League side Wolverhampton Wanderers on a 3.5-year deal from Stade Reims. Now, Wolves understood to have paid £16 million. This is approximately 365,753,800 Namibian dollars for the transfer of Munetsi. The fee makes him the most expensive Zimbabwean footballer in history. Munetsi had a strong first half of the season for Reims in French League One, scoring 4 goals and recording 2 assists in 19 games. The 28-year-old who joined Reims in 2019 from Orlando Pirates made over 150 appearances across all competitions. He became a key player in his debut campaign and went on to earn a reputation for his versatility, work rate and defensive solidity. His performances in France made him a highly sought-after player, with several clubs monitoring his progress before Wolves secured his signature. Now, the Zimbabwean international also showed leadership qualities after becoming Reims vice-captain at the start of 2024-25 season. Munetsi was the second transfer deadline signing for Wolves after the club signed Burkina Faso international Nasser Jiga. All right, last night was the UEFA Champions League. Let's have a look at the results. Not sure if there's any shockers there, but looking at some of the bigger teams there, Paris Saint-Germain 3-0 getting it done. Juventus beating PSV 2-1 and Sporting falling 3-0 to the Germans. Now over there, Manchester City and Real Madrid, the biggest game of the evening, without a doubt, Madrid with a last-minute winner. They will meet again in 2 games to decide who wins on aggregate. Those have been our sports stories on Africa Good Morning. Let's just dive straight into the highlights from the show. Lamola speaks on deployment of South African troops to the DR Congo and says he will not withdraw them because to him that is worse than surrender. Zimra, that is the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, raids and destroys smugglers' boats using drone technology. They are serious about their taxes. And Africa Energy Bank, to launch in the first quarter, targets $120 billion asset base. They were meant to launch in 2024, but they say they will get it done within the first 4 months of 2025. Thank you very much for staying with Africa Good Morning. DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub is precisely where you can find us. Do remember that the NTV Awards have been postponed to a date after the state funeral as we continue to pay our respects to the late founding father of Namibia, Dr. Samuel Shafishuna Daniel Nuyoma. From Africa Good Morning, Sera Jaganaka.